Imagine waking up on the floor with nothing but a mat of reeds beneath you, your back sore from the hard ground, the air already heavy with heat, even though the sun has barely peeked over the horizon. The first thing you hear isn't birdsong or a gentle morning breeze. It's the sharp bark of an overseer reminding you that your body isn't really yours. You don't get to roll over and decide you'll sleep in today. You don't get to decide much of anything. You belong to someone else, and their priorities, not yours, set the rhythm of your day. That's the reality of slavery in ancient Egypt, and trust me, if you were dropped into that world right now, you wouldn't even make it to sunset. The word slave in our modern minds often conjures up one specific picture, but in ancient Egypt, it could mean a lot of different things. Some were prisoners of war dragged in from campaigns in Nubia, Libya, or the Near East. Others were born into bondage, inheriting their parents' lack of freedom. And some were Egyptians themselves who'd fallen into debt so deep that selling their labor indefinitely was the only way to survive. But no matter how you got there, life wasn't a neat little pyramid of predictable routines. It was backbreaking, unpredictable, and at times brutally short. Let's say you're unlucky and you're sent out to the fields. The Nile's flooding has just receded, leaving the black earth rich and ready for planting. Sounds peaceful, right? Except you're bent over for hours with a crude wooden hoe, hacking at soil under a sun that feels like it's baking your skull. No hat, no sunscreen, no breaks when you feel like it. If you're lucky, you might get a thin cloth draped over your head, but it's not going to do much against that desert heat. Your overseer isn't measuring your comfort. He's measuring your output. You slack off, you get whipped. You slow down too much, you might get food taken away. And this isn't a job you clock out of. This is survival work. Fields need to be sown, irrigated, harvested, and if you can't keep pace, there's always someone else who can take your place. The Nile might be the source of Egypt's prosperity, but for you it's a cruel master, demanding endless labor in exchange for survival. Now picture this, you're not sent to the fields, but to the construction sites, those temples, obelisks, and monuments that look so majestic today. Behind every polished stone was a trail of bodies breaking down under impossible weight. You're dragging sledges across sand, hauling ropes until your palms split open, chiseling in the blazing sun until your arms feel like dead weight. There's no safety net, no protective gear, no sympathy. Trip once and a stone can crush you. Fall behind and the whip reminds you to keep moving. Forget about camaraderie, people aren't bonding, they're just hoping to survive until nightfall. And if you think serving in a household was an upgrade, think again. You might dodge the sun, but now you're at the mercy of moods. A wrinkled sheet, burnt bread, or even a crying child could mean punishment. And it never has to be fair. You're on call day and night, dragged from sleep if someone decides they need wine or hot water. Whether outside in the heat or inside under constant scrutiny, your life isn't your own. It's owned, controlled, and spent at someone else's convenience. Food. Don't even get me started on food. Forget about those Instagram-worthy plates of dates, figs, honey, and fluffy loaves of bread that museum recreations love to show off. That's the diet of someone with freedom, or at least someone with coins jingling in their pouch. For you, meals are scraps that barely qualify as meals at all. Stale barley bread, so hard it could chip a tooth. A few onions that leave your breath sharper than the overseer's whip. Maybe a thin, watery gruel if the day is unusually generous. And meat? Don't even dream about it. That's a luxury you'll smell drifting from the master's kitchen, the scent of roasting goose or beef torturing your stomach as you gnaw on bread that tastes like dust. Even when you do get something extra, don't fool yourself into thinking it's kindness. Nobody's checking your protein intake out of concern for your health. You're being kept just strong enough to haul, hammer, grind, and sweat for another day. Your body is fuel, plain and simple. Fuel to keep the engine of someone else's wealth running. You're not dining, you're refueling like a mule, just enough to stagger through the next round of punishment disguised as labor. And if you fall short, if the scraps aren't enough to keep you standing, well, there's always another hungry body waiting to take your place. And let's talk about punishment, because that's really the shadow hanging over every single move you make. In our world, if your boss yells at you, you can roll your eyes, send a meme to your group chat, maybe even hand in your resignation if you've had enough. In ancient Egypt, none of that exists. You don't just work for your boss, you are your boss's possession. That means punishment isn't a warning, it's a guarantee. It could be something small but cruel, like withholding food or water until your stomach twists in knots. Or it could be violent, brutal flogging that leaves your back raw and bleeding. And if you're unlucky enough to be sent to the mines, punishment isn't just a threat, it's the air you breathe. Down there, men and women were pushed until their bodies broke, because replacing you was easier, cheaper, and more convenient than keeping you alive. Imagine realizing the copper ore you're pulling out of the mountain is worth more than the skin on your back or the breath in your lungs. That thought alone is enough to make your knees buckle. And then there's the heat. The heat alone would break most of us before the whip ever did. We throw tantrums when the AC cuts out for a couple of hours or when the Wi-Fi dips just long enough to buffer a video. Picture stepping into that Egyptian sun. No shade, no reprieve, just a furnace in the sky that seems hell-bent on turning you into ash. It doesn't just make you sweat, it sears you. The sand reflects the light back at you, cooking your skin from below while the air scorches you from above. Your eyes sting, your lips crack, and your tongue feels like it's been rolled in salt. Dehydration isn't a matter of discomfort, it's a countdown. Every drop of sweat is a clock tick, and water doesn't come when you ask for it. It comes when you're permitted, which might be long after your body is already on the brink. Try to imagine yourself, soft hands, modern comforts, never knowing real deprivation, bent under a heavy load of stone, your throat bone dry, your vision blurring, the world spinning as if you're about to faint. And then imagine asking for water. Not politely, not desperately, just daring to whisper that you can't go on without it. The answer might be a harsh laugh, or worse, the sting of a whip to remind you that thirst isn't your decision to quench. Try lasting one single afternoon of that, with no energy drink, no bottle of cold water at arm's reach, no break when you feel like it. You'd fold faster than papyrus tossed into a fire, and the overseer wouldn't even pause to notice. Because in that world, your suffering isn't a tragedy, it's the normal price of keeping Egypt's mighty machine running. Now it's worth saying that not every slave lived in chains, whipped every hour of the day. Some worked in temples, performing routine tasks like grinding grain, carrying offerings, or tending animals. Some even gained specialized roles as scribes or artisans if they had skills. And in rare cases, slaves could own property, marry, and even buy their freedom. But don't romanticize that. The possibility of freedom didn't erase the reality of bondage. You were still living in a system where your rights depended entirely on the generosity or cruelty of the person who claimed you. Think about how much we rely on personal choice today. You decide what you wear, what you eat, how you spend your free time. Now strip all of that away. Your clothes are whatever rags are handed to you, your meals are whatever's left after the household eats, and your free time doesn't exist. You're not a person in the eyes of society, you're property. And being property means you can be gifted, traded, or discarded without your opinion ever being asked. The mental toll of that reality is something we don't often think about. Imagine never being able to plan your future, never being able to say, next year I'll do this, or someday I'll try that. Your tomorrow isn't yours, it belongs to someone else. That's not just exhausting, it's soul-crushing. It makes you feel smaller than the sand beneath your feet. And that's before you even factor in the sheer physical exhaustion of hauling, grinding, sweating, and bleeding every single day. So when I say you wouldn't last 24 hours as an Egyptian slave, I don't mean it as an insult. It's not about toughness or grit. It's about how unimaginable it is for someone from our world, where freedom is so deeply ingrained in daily life, to suddenly lose every ounce of control. One day in their sandals would shatter you, body and mind. And maybe that's why it's important to talk about it. Because all those grand temples and monuments we admire today, the ones we travel across the world to see, didn't just spring out of the desert. They were built on backs that bent and broke under weight they never chose to carry. So the next time you picture ancient Egypt, don't just think of glittering gold masks and majestic pyramids. Think of the people whose names we'll never know, the ones who sweated and suffered so those wonders could stand. Because they're the real story behind the stones. And if you want to challenge yourself, tell me in the comments, what's one job in history you know you couldn't survive for even a single day? I'll bet Egyptian slave makes the top of that list for a lot of people. And if you made it this far, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who'd never last an hour under that sun, and stick around for the next story from history's harsher side.